All right. Thank you guys all for coming out tonight. I know it's Good Friday. I know we should all be fasting and not eating meat and like home with our families right now. But we wanted to have this tonight to get you guys ready for the end of the class, because we had a little bit of a freak out moment on Wednesday, or at least I did, because you guys have a week and a half, 2 weeks left, and that's it. How many people feel really good about their final projects? Martin does. That's good. That's really good. Right. So we know there's a lot of Java jobs out there, but it's got a learning curve. We know it's pretty awesome doing Android. It's a great way to show off Java, but there's the learning curve. And so tonight we are going to get you guys running an app by the end of the night. That is the goal. So before you leave tonight, we are going to get an app running on your computer. That way, you can go home. Now you can make your app. Now you have the information. Because you guys are so close. You guys are so close. Because you guys know so much stuff from CES 50. You guys aren't hacks. You guys know the underlying technology of what's going on because you know C. And because you guys know that, Java is going to be a walk in the park. It's like C with training wheels. I'm serious. So, first, let me give a couple thank yous. Big thank you to Lab 1500. It was like Wednesday night. We said we need to have this like hackathon somewhere. Keegan set it up at Lab 1500. They're volunteering in space tonight. Let's make sure we clean it up really, really well. And I don't know, it's a co-working space downtown. It's really awesome. It's $70 a month. Keegan, how much is it? Here's Keegan. I don't know. It's not that much. You come get a desk, or it's a couple bucks a day. And Dan Lohman really likes launch coders. So if you're looking for a place to work and collaborate, come talk to him. He's really great. Second big thank you is the fact that this came together on Wednesday means that I am even less prepared than usual for my talk. Even less prepared. So let me pull something up for you guys and explain something real quick. Everybody have GitHub open? Yeah, open GitHub. Yes. All right. This Android part of the talk is possible because of this guy, Ken Kusin. He's a very, very successful speaker on a tour called No Fluff Your Stuff. The content that you guys are going to hear about tonight, I mean, granted, it's not being delivered by Ken. I'm just using his stuff. But would normally cost people over $1,000. He's one of the best in the industry. And I tweeted him at 3:30 this afternoon, and he was like, Ken, can I use your stuff for this talk? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, two things I want to do. First, I want to get a picture of you guys waving to Ken so we can tweet it to him. All right, everybody do something crazy. Crazier! Crazy. Perfect. All right, the second way that we can say thank you to Ken is that on GitHub, find Ken Kusin. Here's his name right down here. Can you guys all see that? Oops, actually that's probably pretty difficult to see at the moment. Can you guys all see that? Everybody find them? Bigger? I can make it bigger. Okay. Connecticut? Yep. Now once you find Ken, go over to this button on the right and click follow. Because Ken has amazing content. You follow him on GitHub and you're going to see all the stuff that he publishes. Next, click on repositories. Oh my gosh. And click on this Hello World app. Everybody following it?
No, I can't even get signed in. It's not like doing what it's supposed to do.
I'm the same. I don't have GitHub.
All right.
I just now got into GitHub and I searched for Cruising. Either one of them missed that.
Well, at some point tonight, guys, we'll have to go back to Ken's profile page. And when you get there, go ahead and star one of his projects. In addition to following, go ahead and star this project and then board it as well, because this is the project that we're going to be working on later tonight.
Which project was it?
Hello world. Kusin, hello world. Alright. Enough of that. So, finally, big thank you to the mentors. Keegan,
What's up?
get in here.
What?
Get in here. Alright, Chris and come up here too. You guys all know Keegan, he doesn't have to come up here. That's where Keegan's working from tonight. If you want to ask him a question, you have to come up and write it on the wall with a marker. Alright, so guys, these are your mentors. They're taking time out of their Friday night. I called them up last minute and was like, hey, can you help teach some people Android? So Luke, he's an engineer at Tapestry Boeing. He specializes in Java, he knows Mac, he knows Linux, he knows DevOps. Chris is a fellow launch coder. He's Java certified, he got placed right away, and now he's doing Ruby on Rails development at EffectDev. So guys, give these guys a round. Alright, and you guys know Keegan, he's good at everything, so. Alright, but here's the kicker, guys. These guys are really good at Java, but none of us are amazing at Android. We all know it a little bit, right? But none of us are amazing at it. So we're going to work together tonight. We're going to work together as a team, and we're not going to have all the answers. By far, we're not going to have all the answers, but we're going to Google the answers. And when we find out an answer that other people need to find out about, you're going to come up here and you're going to tell the entire room about it. So once, you guys know at the library how we fix a bug, like on your computer, and then you go to another person and you fix the same bug? Tonight we're working together, so we only fix each bug once. Once you figure out a problem, come up here, plug in your laptop, and tell everybody about it. So, that's the strategy. These guys are going to be walking around helping. We can help figure things out, but we cannot give Android answers right off the bat. We're learning this right along with you guys. So, we have one more mentor. He's coming a little bit late. He's an intern at Asynchrony, so one of the really good shops in town. All right, thank you, Keegan.
Yep. You guys all see that? Okay. All right, very good. All right, so guys, it's a very fluent structure tonight. How late can you guys stay? Can you guys stay till 10? 11? 12? 12:30? All right, excellent, excellent. This is what we're going to do then. We're going, first talk, we're going to talk about Android. We're going to get Android app running on everybody. I'm going to try and talk for about half an hour. Then we're going to take 45 minutes, and that's it. And we're all going to get Android running on your laptop. That's how much time you have to get going. That's how much time we have to get going. Because by 10 o'clock, we all need to have Android running on our computers. At 10 o'clock, we're going to order some pizza. In fact, I'm going to pass around a hat in a little bit. We've got an hour and a half lead time on the pizza. So if you guys want pizza, just throw in a couple bucks. We'll get it ordered at Papa John's, and it'll be here by 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, take a little break, and that's when we're going to go into Spring server-side, and we're going to create a Spring server-side database application in Java that we can work out of. And we're going to have our app talk to that Spring server-side. So now you guys have all the pieces that you need to put together a really cool Android app. And this is brand new stuff, guys. It's stuff that's only been committed within the past couple weeks. And it's just so much damn easier than it was before. It almost feels unfair. I'll tell you guys a little bit of the stuff going on underneath. That way you still know what's going on. All right, so half an hour talk. We're going to hack for 45 minutes getting Android up and running. Then
we're going to take a little break, eat pizza, set up Spring Server, and we'll be done. So, you guys have a good idea where we're going? All right, let's knock this out. All right, it's 8 o'clock right now. We have until 10 o'clock to get Android installed in there. So, everybody pay attention for just a couple minutes. You can cut me off whenever you want. Guys, as I mentioned, Ken Houston's talk. In fact, everybody close their laptops for the moment. Everybody close them. Sorry to be so selfish. I know you guys really want to get going, but we have to. What is this?
No, anyone still needs it.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody got it already?
I don't know. You need it? Okay guys, I'm going to tell you as much information as I could think of this afternoon, and then I'll let you get hacking. So I said 30 minutes, this might only go 15 minutes. But really guys, the premise of this talk is that Android is not an easy system to develop for at first. Because you guys can look on the internet, and you can look up how to do stuff. But it changed so much within the past couple years that you could look up how to do something wrong, and it'll make it 10 times harder than doing it the new way, doing it the correct way. And so take a look. Can you guys all see this pie chart? All right, we hear these names tossed around all the time, guys. And they're really silly names. They go down the alphabet naming stuff. But we're only going to look at stuff past 4.0. If you go before 4.0, you have to include a compatibility jar, and you have to change the way you're doing things inside your application. So I know some of you may have a 2.0 Android device. Go for 4.0. It's going to make things a lot easier. Now you might ask, what about this 3.2? What is this? It's non-existent. Okay. Android came out with a special platform for tablets for a very short period of time, and then they made it universal. So Android will work on a tablet just as well as it'll work on the phone, writing the same type of code. And if you can see here, honeycomb is just this little white slice. 4.0 and above. That is what we're going for. Now I know you guys know that I am an IntelliJ fanatic, but let me back this up with some pretty good. I know a couple of you guys. How many people were using Eclipse? I know there are a couple. Yeah, right. And it's all over the Android documentation. Use Eclipse, use Eclipse, use Eclipse. Google is finally starting to come around to use IntelliJ. IntelliJ was open source 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. Now they forked IntelliJ and they've created their own IDE. And Google is moving away from Eclipse. They're no longer using Eclipse. They're moving to this Android developer, this Android Studio. And it's built upon IntelliJ. It's really amazing. It's really fast, and it's easier to work with than Eclipse. So if you want to work with Eclipse, that's fine. Tonight we're going to be talking about Android Studio. And I hope you guys really enjoy it. It says early access preview. Don't worry about that. It's really stable. It's been around for quite some time. Compatibility library, I just told you about that. Now what resources have you guys used to look up Android stuff so far?
Android website.
Android website? Documentation?
Books,
yes. Okay, good. Take a look at Android API documentation.
Also, probably known as simulator.
Nice.
It's built in.
Nice.
But I don't.
Good. All right, so you guys see up the top, we've got a design. This is how they want you to design applications. Apple kind of copied Android a little bit in how their applications are being designed. So this is kind of important. If you want your apps to look good, look at this. Develop is really where it's at. And if there's one thing that Google is good at, it's the search. Come to the Google documentation website to find information. Don't Google it just in the wide open web. Come up here to the top, to this little button right up here,
search button, and you can type in string, and it's like, oh my god, I will tell you all of this really comes from.
So which website are you on?
Developer.android.com.
Yeah, developer.android.com. That is the site that you want to go to. Because guys, sometimes it's just a little stuff, and like that's what Ken is really good about talking about, because he does this for a living, he trains for a living, and he's able to tell us the easy way to do things. We can read books, doesn't mean that we're doing it the easy way. So, you can come up here to this bar, and you can type in any class you want, and it's going to bring up the documentation for it. So we can click string, and now we've got all of the Java docs that talk about string. Very simple, very essential. Creating an application. How many people, did anybody use Android Studio in here? Yes, you used Android Studio?
I'm playing with it, I haven't, like, I don't know if you can call me a real user.
Yeah. Okay guys, it does a lot of stuff for you. Give me about 2 minutes to talk. Sir, can you see in the back? That's really far away.
Mostly.
Okay. You guys need to come closer and just like stand for a minute, that's fine. I want to show you guys how easy it is to start a project in Android Studio. And even if you're working in Eclipse, IntelliJ is able to directly import any Eclipse project. And you can even export your IntelliJ project directly to an Eclipse project. But just by having an Eclipse project, you can click open. You can open it with IntelliJ, and it's going to work exactly the same way. Exactly the same way. So let me show you how easy it is to create a project in Android Studio. We're going to click New Project. We're going to give the project a name.
Can you make it bigger, Mike?
I hope so. Here we go. All right, just give it a name. Bump. Whoops. Package name. I told you guys a little bit about package names in the Java talks, right? It's a unique identifier so things don't get mashed up whenever you put your stuff together with other applications. It's especially important for Android applications because this is your unique identifier on the Android Play Store. This has to be unique.
It doesn't have to necessarily be a real website.
No, it
I mean,
doesn't.
it's so confusing with that document.
Yeah, it's really confusing. You can make this anything you want. People usually use com.boeing or com.many because they know if they own that URL, then no one else is going to make a package structure with that URL. But that is the absolute standard in Java, is to start with com.something.something. You usually don't have to worry about stuff conflicting.
So, if we don't have a website now, but we're
Yeah.
gonna have a website eventually, can we make it with something like com.example now and change it later?
No, don't do com.example. Or the real word example,
Or just something generic, and then replace it later on after we buy a domain. Is that possible?
Yeah, you can, in fact, like make the more unique the better. And you can make these things as long as you want. So you could say Emmett, what's your last name? Wilson. Com.EmmettWilson app1. You know, you can make these things as long as you want. So start with the most unique identifier right in front.
Does that call into the App Store?
This will be represented in the App Store. Yeah. Hey guys. Okay.
Could you, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
would you mind explaining the module name? Because that's going to be important.
Module name? This might just is in Eclipse as well. If it's not, this is probably just the name that IntelliJ gives it to group it together. You don't have to worry about that as much. Minimum SDK, remember we're going to be working with 4.0. We don't want to go down to 2. We don't want to go down there. All pretty simple, really simple stuff. You guys feel good about that page? We just give it a name, a unique package name, and that's it. You
Does it
see?
have to pay a licensing fee to KitKat?
Oh my God! All right, good story. Good story. So the name was supposed to be Keyline Pie, and the code name around Google just for fun was KitKat. and they got to release date, and they're like, guys, it's really fun calling this KitKat. You think we can just call up KitKat Company and be like, hey, can we use your name? And they called up KitKat Company, and within 2 hours, KitKat was like, oh yeah, you can name something your Android operating system off KitKat. And so there's a good mutual friendship between Google and KitKat.
Mutual benefit, because it gets the name out.
Exactly. And this next page doesn't really matter. It's, what type of art do you want? Big deal, we can always come back and change that later. Click next. It's going to start us off with our own activity right from the beginning. We're just going to say a blank activity. First activity name, it's just doing more work for us. Click finish. And now we click finish. Looks really small. Sorry guys. It's going to take just a second. All right, while this is loading up, anybody know what Gradle is? No. All right. It's awesome, right? Anybody know what Ant is?
Ant Plus.
Ant Plus, okay.
But that's for wireless KitKat. It's probably not the same.
Yeah. All right, just so for background information, Ant is the super old way of moving files around in Java. So like, let's say you want, like in C, you've got all these classes, all these .c files that you have to compile. You'd write a little ant command in XML that would be like, hey, compile all of these .c files into just the binary files, and then put them in a directory. That's what Ant does. It's really old school. Don't use it if you can. Do not use Ant. All of Android has upgraded to something called Gradle, and it's the next generation of compiling, managing their code. Now Gradle, it also incorporates dependency management. Like, have you guys heard of Maven? Yeah. All right, Maven, you just say, if you've got a jar that you need a library that you need to use in your application, you put it in your Maven XML file, and it'll download it for you. And then you don't have to have all those libraries you don't have to download them yourself. Maven does it as well. Gradle combines Ant and Maven. So just background information. Sorry to keep you guys waiting for just that second. All right, guys, check it out. We've got our created app. Look how much it's done for us. I know Eclipse probably does about the same amount, but it's created our first activity. It's filled in all of our methods for us. We've got an Android manifest. It's some XML, but it's really, really not that bad. Like, in the Android manifest, what goes in the Android manifest?
All your activities.
Yes, activities. What else? Version information. Intents. Nice. Permissions. All right, so if you want to ask somebody if you can use GPS, it goes in the manifest. If you want to ask somebody if you can use their contact book, it goes in the manifest. If you want to get a notification inside your Android application that someone's calling the phone, or that perhaps, let's see, name an intent. I'm trying to think of someone.
I'm just connecting it too. So.
Yeah.
Network status change.
Network status change. All right, so like, let's say your Android phone goes off network. If you want to get notified of that in your Android application,
Oh, with batteries low too.
or if the battery's low, or if your battery gets low, that goes in your manifest, and those are called intents. An intent is just a way to receive a notification about something going on outside of your application. Easy, right? Yes.
So can intent be even if you move, like you're not in the same location anymore?
We'll talk about that.
Can you make your own broadcast?
Yeah, we can. So can you make your own broadcast? Yes. Does an intent get called whenever you move? I'm not really sure. I'll get back to you about that. Okay, we talked about intents. Let's take a look. All right, in Android applications, you're going to see all types of stuff labeled R. And essentially what this is just an Android resource. Android doesn't want you to have plain text strings in your application. Why? Because if you need to ship your application to Mexico or Japan, you're going to have to change that text based on the language that you're working in. And there's other reasons why as well, but they want you to separate all of that stuff out into a resource file. And then you can reference those resources by saying r.id. whatever you need. And so we can take, you guys know IntelliJ, control click action settings. It will take us to domain.xml. And actually, Chris, you might remember a little bit more about R files. What can you tell me?
Yeah, pretty much exactly what you said. It's a way to put all the stuff you're going to use and that can possibly change in one place. So you don't have to go and change it in a bunch of places, but just worry about that one. I don't remember much more than that.
I think the most important thing that book says is that you can't delete it, and if you do delete it, it will generate itself. So
Yes.
you can't really mess it up because
Yes.
it's going to generate it.
Yes. That's, I think IntelliJ, hello, is this going to give me a warning? No, we'll figure that out. Okay, moving along. In this res directory, this is where we're going to have a lot of stuff that needs to get resolved. And so, we've got images for each size of the device that we're working on. It's pretty nice. Pretty nice. Put some layout. Oh, nice. Look at this. We've got a little UI we can work with. So, if you want, it's drag and drop, guys. If you want text on your screen, drag it on. Now you've got text on your screen. Really easy. You don't have to do any XML configuration. Now, a lot of times you'll have to deal with different layouts, though. And the layouts will typically be either relative, they'll be linear, or they'll be table layouts. And so a linear layout, this is a relative, and it's just placing something relative to the side of the screen. But if you want it to be more dynamic, let me delete that. You can say, I want a vertical layout. Can you guys see that? That's not even big enough, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's not
All right, good. You can add a linear layout. I want this to be vertical. Now, any text that I add to this vertical layout, now it's going to line up real nice. Actually, let's get rid of that. I don't know. You guys can figure that out. You guys can figure that out on your own. It's really
I think it's
easy.
that hello world that came in their default that's picking up.
Yeah, I'm just going to undo all that stuff that I did. Oh, it was the hello world in there that's breaking it. Okay, let's close that. UI designer, really nice, really easy. Oh, here's the strings.xml file that I was talking about earlier. So if you need to reference a string in your application, you just say string, what you're going to reference it by. So, I don't know, name, and then pretty simple, and you're back to the Android manifest where you can clear all your stuff. Quick note, all right, note this extends activity. We talked about extending stuff before. All of these items get called by Android. So there's no one, you don't have to specifically call any one of these methods. I think that's something to clear up. Is that you never call these methods. Most of the time in Android, you never specifically call these overridden methods. Android's going to call into them on their own, on its own. So like this method, on create, this method gets called whenever your application gets created. And there's plenty more of those that we can do as well. But we're just going to keep things nice and simple. You guys are paying great attention so far. We talked about a lot. Back to the slides, move down the slides a little bit. Activities must be declared, list of intentions, services, content providers, right? Activities represent a screen. Every screen you want to have has to be an activity. It's full of callback methods, just like I mentioned. Man, you guys are doing such a good job of paying attention because I'm just dumping this out with no coherent fashion at all. So, you can have callback methods like on create, on destroy, on start, on stop, on pause. End of part 1. Let's see, what else is in here? I'm sorry guys, you guys are being really patient. Talked about key values, declaring IDs. You need to access a resource from Java. You need to provide it an ID. Sounds good. Okay, we're going to keep moving. We're moving. Okay, so big question here. What if we want to get a button? You know how we had that UI designer? Let's see here. Where did we go to get that UI designer? It's in layout, right? Nice, nice. We put a button on the screen. How do we interact with that button in our code?
Put a listener.
You have to put a listener on it. But how do we even get the button object? Like, where do we get the reference to it?
First, ID, put in ID, or call the ID from the code from Java files.
Yeah, like you have to say find view by ID, right? Like you were saying. And then you just give it its ID. So let's do that really quickly. And this is going to be live coding, so guys, watch out. What? Here is the ID of the button. We're just going to call it button. That is fine. Not a big deal. We want to add a listener to it. So we say, zoom in. Zoom in? All right, I will. Let's see what we can do here. Find. Oh my God, nice. I'm glad that did not take any extra work. Just type find view by ID. This is one of the methods that gets provided to you by this activity. So if you do a control click on find view by ID, it's going to take you up into this activity class. This gets provided for you by the Android activity class. Let's close that. Now in here we can just say r dot layout dot activity main dot. Come on.
R.ID.
Oh, you're right. R.ID. Button. Nice. Now we have an object button. In fact, I can say button right here. Our button equals. Nope. Anybody know the fix it button in IntelliJ? Fixes anything? Alt enter, yes. Nice.
Is that referring to the button?
So now we have a button object in our application that we can talk about. And what can we do with this button object? And, okay, what about click? Actually on, let's see.
On click activity.
Call on click, here we go. Gosh, I am so glad I don't have to know this API to write something. Call on click. Let's see, do we need anything in here? No parameters.
It'll actually make suggestions if you don't type the first letter correctly.
Yeah, it'll try and figure out where you, so click. Form click is clickable, set clickable.
So I think you have to set on click listener if you
Yeah.
go down.
Set on click listener.
Nice, all right, thank you so
Well, this is
much.
a long click. I'm not
Oh,
sure
no,
if it's the same
set
one.
on click, yeah, good call. Gosh, I am really glad you're helping me through this. All right, so set on click listener. It's going to take an on click listener. So let's see if IntelliJ will fix this for us. We'll just say new on click listener. And notice that this is an interface. And we can't implement interfaces, right? We learned that in our object-oriented talks, that we can't make an object out of an interface. So what do we do? IntelliJ, fix it. Okay, nice. We're creating an anonymous class here, guys. This is very important. You're going to use it all the time. Everybody, look at this. Anonymous class. How can we implement this interface? Well, the reason we can implement this interface is that we're implementing it, actually. We're actually implementing all the methods needed for this to be a real object. So for example, if I change the name of this method, we're no longer implementing that interface, and this is no longer valid. So, as long as I do this little funky syntax, in fact, as long as you know how to do Alt-Enter. So, you type all right, we know, backtrack, Control-P, it will tell us what it wants in this directory, Control-P, we'll say, you want an on-click listener? Okay, I'll say new on-click listener. It's going to suggest what you should type in, hit enter, and it types out all the code for you. So much better than C, right? So much better than C. And now we can do anything we want inside of on-click listener. Make text. Hey. Ooh, that's not right. Chris, we did this before. Fix it. Toast.
I don't remember any of this.
Do you remember toast?
But it's the same warning about strings. You probably want to declare like a string.
Oh yeah, you need to access an R output.
Let's see.
Maybe, I don't know.
Press Alt-Enter. Guys, when I said we were doing this as a team, I meant you guys are going to help me get through this talk. That's what I really meant. Not started. Extract string resource, yeah, let's try that. Let me back out just so we can get some context.
Doesn't it say on the left if you look to the left on that coding screen?
Oh yeah, call.
Doesn't it tell you what the
Over
error
here?
is?
Cannot resolve method, make text. Let's see. Undo. Alright. Let's see.
Contact. You have to use contact.
Oh, we have to get contacts and we have to do all this stuff. You know what, guys? Alright, Android documentation time, right? We don't know how to do something, we're solving the problem, and we're going to show everybody at the same time. Toast. Okay, great. It's a widget. And let's see if it's even going to give us some information on how to use this.
Yeah.
Set text? No. Yeah, set text, I think.
Well, maybe look at the methods. Methods.
Look at the what?
Methods if you scroll down and shows you.
Methods down here? What? Yeah, text. Set text. Update the text interest as previously created. Oh, I think I know what it is. I think I know what it is, guys. Let me say set text.
You have to make a new toast object.
Maybe. Let's see. That is.
Make test and then use this for context. You still have to use context.
I wonder if I have to say toast equals to toast.
Yeah, please.
Okay, nice. Did get some type of context. I wonder if it knows. Okay, I just pressed Control Space, and it gave me something to put in here. So let's save the application. All right, fixed. Guys, I have no idea what I'm doing right now, but I'm writing Android code. So hopefully that gives every single one of you in this room a little bit of hope, right? I have no idea what I'm doing. All right, what did we say? Set text. Okay. Heyo. What's going on? Oh, you know what? I can't say. I don't think that's an object. And is there one last thing? I think I have to say that show, right? Oh, you know what? I have to make this a temporary variable. Toast equals new toast. Guys, so patient. Toast dot set text. Heyo. Alright guys, we just got through writing, so this is going to give you a little pop-up on the screen. Everybody see that? You guys see it in the back? See it in the back. Oh my god.
Get application, what is that?
What's this return?
Yeah.
Returns context. Don't control click on sheet, we don't have the source. I'll go back. But I pressed control space and it filled it in for me. So, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer to that. If it works, it works. All right. So now, whenever we click on that button, we're going to show a little toast, a little pop-up that says, "Heyo," and that's it. Easy, right? So, let's run this Android application. Guys, you are almost done. You have like 5 minutes left and then you're free, okay? You are free. Let's run this. All right, notice it gives us a run configuration by default whenever we create our application. We're just going to click go. Also, I failed to mention that up here at the top, there are all these handy tools that let you get in to the Android debugging bridge, which is how you debug Android applications. And so right here, we've got a monitor that you can look at stuff.
Can you make some bigger?
Ooh, yeah, good call. Thank you, sir. Just shout out whenever you... These 3 buttons right up here, guys, very, very important. So for example, whenever I click go, it's going to say, go ahead, choose a device that you would like to work on. Now I can get to that same spot by clicking on, whoa, man, by clicking on this button right here, right?
When I was doing this, my Android virtual, yeah, that was empty. It was
Yeah.
sitting on it, but I downloaded all the APIs. So,
I'll show you how to fix that.
yeah, I was looking around on one.
Okay, I'm going to click, if I click this button over here, this little button over here actually, I'll zoom out. Look, it just ran something on the command line down here. Did you see that? It opened this window. This window is the same as clicking this button right here. And it's also the same as running ADB, ABB on the command line. You can do everything right here on the command line. In fact, your Android device is just a little Linux machine. You type ADB space shell on the command line, you can get into your Android application and work with it just like you did in the appliance, because it's just a Linux machine. That's all. That's all it is. So right here is where you define all your devices. If you want to make a new device, you click New, and you give it a name, and now you can pick from anything, any phone that you like. Any phone. You can replicate any phone that you want. We'll pick a Nexus 5.
Mike, is this
Yeah.
the same ATD interface that, like I use when I want to do a cyanogen mod and push and pull
Yes.
stuff from there?
Yep. This is using the same tools. In fact, IntelliJ just runs a little command on the command line to open up the same windows as ADB. So that's nice. If you're familiar with ADB tools, it'll be exactly the same in IntelliJ. Now down here, guys, we've got this traditional ARM. This is the default CPU for the Android device. But I bet you $1 million that my crappy MacBook will run faster than your emulator if I use this Intel Atom. $1 million, I bet you guys. Is anybody using the Hackathon emulator in here? Nobody? Oh man, you guys are going to like this. Okay? Keep in mind, I own a crappy MacBook. I mean, this thing melts when I try and run the appliance. It melts. You can choose between an emulated webcam, or you can actually use the real webcam on your Mac, like on your laptop that you have right now. You can do everything that you need to do on a phone in this emulator. Okay. You guys feel good about that? We just gave it a name, picked out some stuff, random stuff really, and now we're good to go. Not that bad? Click OK. Alright guys, like 5 more minutes, I'm going to show you 3 more things, and then you're free to go. 3 more things. Yeah, not this time though. Not this time. Alright, I'm going to click on our device. Nice. So I've created that new device. That's how you guys create a device. Now, whenever I click this launch emulator, click Our Device, and click Go. Here's the emulator down here. Here's what it looks like. Can you guys see that? This guy? Now, I can tell you right now, this is not going to work. In fact, it was pretty frustrating to me last night at like, I don't know, 12:15. This is still at 12:15, okay? It was pretty frustrating, but I can tell you how to fix it.
What's wrong? What do you mean there's something wrong?
Maybe it's just a problem with my MacBook, but essentially what was happening was, you know, it would try and deploy this application before the emulator was up and running. So you guys noticed that this emulator was closed before, and it took a second for it to come up. It has to fully come up and fully initialize before you can push anything to it. And actually, maybe since I'm using the hacks emulator, maybe that won't happen. But if you guys get a message that says, hey, is there a package manager installed? It's a really snide message. If you get it, you'll recognize it. If that happens, just go ahead and try to launch your application again, because it tried deploying the application before it wasn't ready. Yeah. And I went through and I recorded the first 4 bugs that I found, like the first 4 problems that I had. I put them up on LaunchCode TV. Actually, I didn't. I think Keegan did. I hope he just put them up there just a second ago. So hopefully you guys will have those videos, so you can look. If you have those same type of problems, you can look at those as well. Alright, I'm going to try and launch again, real quick. This will probably run much faster on your PC, but believe it or not, this is much faster than the emulator, the traditional emulator.
What's changed?
So the Hackathon emulator, it uses Intel virtualization. Remember when you guys were installing your appliances and it wouldn't install on laptops older than like 5 or 6 years? And it's because it didn't have that Intel virtualization. And you can check for that. You can go to websites and you can check to see if your PC has that. And so Intel wrote a plugin or whatever. I'm not sure, Ben, if it will work on AMDs. I assume.
I didn't see anything on there that said it would.
Yeah, I assume it will. But it really, really speeds things up. And actually, guys, screw this. This will come up eventually. It's going to work. While we're waiting for this to come up, I want to show you guys how to install the Hackathon emulator. And this is really important to pay attention to because it's not very obvious. In fact, it kept me up really, really late last night figuring this out. So, you guys notice I click this button right up here, and it's running something on the command line. And now we've got our Android SDK manager. Note that this window is just the same as typing Android on the command line. That's the same thing. So you guys are probably familiar with this. This is the page that it took you to install all of your APIs at the beginning. And now we're just going to install the latest for 4.0. And you can go back APIs and you can test stuff. But you notice you've got documentation, SDK, samples, and you can say, all right, great. To install the Hackathon emulator, first, you have to go down here, and you have to say, I want to install this. But it's deceptive in the fact that it doesn't actually install it, it only downloads the emulator. Once that emulator is downloaded, you can hover over this. Hover over this, and it's going to tell you the location of where that thing lives. And then we're going to go there, and we're going to run the installer manually. So let me switch over to the command prompt. Okay. Go over to the command prompt, and we're going to say, actually, it might even be my history. History, rep, enter. There we go. If you're using a Mac or Linux, use a backslash to get to this path. You can type ls. I believe there's an extras. Sarah, can you see that back there?
Yes.
Type in LS. Okay, great. Intel. Type in LS. Hardware Accelerated Execution Manager. Open. In Windows, type Explorer space dot, and it will open that window for you just like that. Double click on here. Here I've got a .dmg, you're going to see a .exe. Just double click on it, it's a little install window. Standard stuff, just install it, no big deal. So you've downloaded it, right? You've clicked install on the Android SDK manager. You've installed it using the installer. You're done, right? Not yet. Not yet. There's 3 steps. The very last step is let's look at our available devices right now. And this is the thing that drove me crazy last night. So if I click new, last night, no matter what, it was only showing me the ARM. And I was like, dude, I installed the Intel Atom processor. I know it should be there. And I searched and I searched, and I uninstalled Android, and I reinstalled Android, and oh my god. Here's what you have to do to get it to show up and use it as your emulator. We're going to go back to the SDK manager. And we're just going to click up here for convenience, SDK manager.
Where does it look for that? Because I remember it was a separate download.
Oh, you have to set your Android home, in fact. So let me show you guys that. So Android requires both Java and Android to run. And if you click right here, you can specify both of them. So let me show you guys that again. If you go up to File, and you go to Project Structure, Android SDK, right here you specify which Android SDK you want to use. If you've got multiple, somehow installed multiple on your machine, this is how you know where it's installed. This is how you know what JDK that you're using. Okay. SDK Manager, great. All right, the very last step to get the Hacksum emulator. Hacksum is absolutely essential. Is you have to install this Intel X Atom system image. Install that, and then you can run the Hacksum emulator on anything you want.
So it's showing up by default. Is that what it's going to run? Is that what it's going to run? Because I installed Android Rumble, and I think I have that option. And wait and
Yeah.
So it means it's there?
Yeah, if you can get to the Intel Atom processor, then I think you've got Hacksum installed somehow. Give it a shot though. If it
Like when you set up your machines, the default machines, do they have root access or do they have like default manufacturer access?
Oh, on the device itself or on
the emulators?
Oh, on the emulators.
Are the emulators, do they natively have root or are they crippled as like any production?
I assume they have root. I assume they have root. Let's try something.
Can we open our laptops and then have you walk us through how to install it? Because, I did the download and I opened it up, but obviously there's a lot more to that. It'd be better to just do it with the group. And walk
Oh yeah,
through it.
absolutely. Install that Hacksum or install. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I've got a video on that online.
Okay.
So maybe that will help as well.
But it's not easy to watch a video while you're doing the install.
That's true. Okay. All right, guys, let's do that. You guys are free. Open your laptops. That only took, I don't know, 50 minutes. God, that was a long time. We have an hour and 10 minutes to get Android running on your
Do we
laptop.
need to
Go.
have the half cooked pizza?
Pizza, yes. Great call. Thank you.
Basically, on old phones equate to like a web page. And so an application is composed of a bunch of activities on old phones. And say on this activity, you have a smiley face, which could be a button information, whatever. you have some element or some object on that activity, and if on older phones, if you want to get it to a different activity, that persists things between screens, what you do is you send it inside an intent. And so an intent is kind of like a hyperlink. And so that was all these old API versions, sub 3.0. But then when 3.0 came out, suddenly they had tablets. And that changed things because suddenly the hardware had the capacity to do a lot more than the software side did. So people could develop a lot more complex things. They just didn't have the actual vocabulary to do it with. And hopefully. And so what happened when tablets came out was the concept of a fragment was introduced. I don't know why you're writing this, but. So in a fragment looks like an activity, it walks like an activity, it quacks like an activity. If you're familiar with that, you can treat it like one. But the reason it's not an activity is because it's not one discrete thing. On tablets, you can have a bunch of things going on all at the same time. But developers, to that point, have been limited to one activity, like one bundle of functionality, one focused thing a user could do. So what fragments are, is they're basically activities. But they're activities as you would need to use them on more powerful phones and tablets. And so with a fragment, suddenly you can do all kinds of things. You can have all kinds of things going on, and it opened up a whole lot more that developers could do. And so there's 3.0, and this is where Google figured everything out. They had to kind of balance really old phones and like brand new tablets and do that at the same time. So that's 3.0. After they iterated through that, I think they got through like 3.2, whatever it might be. I don't think you guys can see that here. I'll move to this one. 4.0 came out. And what 4.0 was let's make tablets look pretty. They figured out most of the stuff, how fragments and everything down underneath worked, but developers still didn't. It was still kind of like the old stylings that they use on phones and stuff, but tablets can do so much more. And phones at this point could now also. So 4.0 came out, and they upgraded a lot of stuff. They upgraded a lot of things you could do on the views, and a lot of other stuff. And so when you're developing for a device, the vocabulary you have to build whatever you want to build is defined by this API level, which was defined by the actual capacity of the hardware they had at the time that they made that API. So when you're developing in 4.0, that means that you're developing on all the newest stuff, but that it won't work on the older stuff. And so if you want to make something that works all the way back, you have to program and tell it, if it's this version, do this, if it's that version, do that, so on. And you lose functionality as you go back. So that's why it's not really at this point worth it, because they're phasing out all these older ones. At this point, worry about 4.0 and above.
How long has 4.0 been out there?
For at least a year, I think. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, for a little while. But not that long when you consider it 2 years in history of phones. And so then the next areas I'm going to go through. What was it? So when an application starts, there's your main activity, which is like the first page that comes up. And so inside the main activity, the first thing it calls when that happens is a method called onCreate. And so that's the method where you tell your button whatever. And so I guess conceptually, what made sense to me when I was trying to get a button to work is that inside this onCreate method, you want to take your smiley face and say, hey, give me my smiley face. And you do that by saying like, my variable equals this smiley face. And once you've done that, you can mess with the smiley face. Whatever you want to put in there, you just, in this onCreate method, need to tell it like, hey, this is the stuff I'm putting there. Where it gets kind of tricky is this whole R thing. And what R is on phones and tablets, they have like limited processing power as opposed to computers, where it's a lot more robust. And so in the makeup of a directory, inside the source folder is the place where you actually type. Like you as a developer, that's where you put your source code predominantly. But then, sorry you guys can't see, it'll be on the board. Inside the source directory is where you type all your stuff. And so when you type stuff in here, The R thing might be really confusing, but basically all it is as you type things and you tell the application, hey, I want these things, what you need to do is let the application know beforehand. So say on a phone when somebody presses it and opens it up, in order to help it run as fast as possible, it'll take all those different things, all the text you're going to write, all the different buttons, all the different images, and it's going to put them in this folder called R class. And inside here, you have different things. You might see something called drawable, HDPI, all these different things. Those are for all the different displays that Android devices have, the various formats and whatever you want to put in there. There's drawable, there's some layout, values, and like inside your values folder, that's the one I remember. That's where you put all your strings, all your numerics, all your colors. And what you're doing is, say, metaphorically, your application has a bunch of raw food, and what you want to give your user is like a finished meal. What you're doing is inside our class, you're saying, here's all the raw food. But then when you hit run, I don't know where this happens yet, but I know that for an actual, when you open it up, when you hit run, what it does is it takes all that stuff and then it generates that file named RJava. And inside RJava, it's like all the prepared food, all the different things you want to use in your app. The app takes them, finishes them, puts them in a way where they're done. It takes no memory when you're running the app, and so you can run everything pretty quickly. It's like to account for the fact that it's running on a phone or a tablet with more limited memory. And so when you're doing in-app create, when you say like find view by ID, what you're doing is you're telling your program, hey, go look in RJava, go look for this thing that I made, and grab that thing. That's the thing I want to mess with. And the reason it's in that thing is just because you're programming for like a phone or a tablet, and it doesn't have that much memory. And so it's not some big complicated thing. There's very practical reasons behind why these happen. And I had one last point, 1 second. Last final ID, main activity. Well, while I'm thinking, are there any questions that I probably won't be able to answer? But yeah.
One thing I wanted to say is you do not ever touch the R class.
Yeah.
Never touch it manually.
Oh, that's what it was. Thank you. So you might see when your button is, when you put it on there, and you double click it, it'll have like the name, and then it'll also have the ID. If, when you click it, on that ID, you see plus at name, or whatever, plus at what name. That plus is important because what it does is when r.java is generated, it goes through and it looks for all the things where it has plus there, and it takes those and puts those inside r.java. And so if you put a plus in front of something, you should only do it once. Otherwise, you're wasting time, there's probably going to be an error, something like that will happen. But once you plus something, it's there, you can use it anywhere. And the program will take that and put it where you can use it inside R for the rest of the application you use. And if that plus is not there, then it means that you've already declared it. So don't worry, it's there. I think the ID will take care of it. But just something I found that I've kind of thought, like, I should probably remember this. And then I'm just assuming that the at, I don't know what it is. So good. All right. Any questions? I guess. Yeah, something like that.
Nice. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, and Chris actually has to, take off. Oh my God, thank you. All right, guys, sorry for the technical talk. Essentially, Spring is going to allow us to instantly run a Java server application without having the packages or we're just a command to press go. And it gives us some really, really nice annotations, which is almost like Java magic, which I'll explain in a little bit. But we can just say, hey, I want any web request that goes to /books to do this piece of code. I want it to go look up the books from the database and send it back. In fact, you can do templating just like in PHP. Except now, instead of PHP, you have
a real, like you have a real type of language. Like Java is a real language. PHP, I don't know, is Keegan in here? He's not. Yeah, I can say whatever I want about PHP now. You've got a language that you debug. You've got a language that's actually interpreted by a compiler, and it's so much nicer. So, Spring 4 it only came out 2 weeks ago, guys, and that's why I just had to talk to you guys about this, because before this, Spring was too complicated to explain. Because Spring gives you everything. It gives you transaction management, it gives you web handling, and you had to know, it even gives you security. So if you wanted to find logins in your website, Spring does all of this for you. And before this, it was just too complicated to set up, but now it's no configuration. Essentially, it's going to expect your program to be set up in a certain way, and it's just going to make assumptions about it. And whatever jars you need, whatever libraries you need, it's going to pull it in on its own and integrate it into your project. So you don't have to know what libraries you need. You don't have to go out and be like, well, I guess I need Spring Security 3.2, and if I'm going to use that, I'm going to use Spring MVC. You guys don't have to know any of that. You just say go, and it's like, well, you annotated that with a controller. That's a web. That's in the web framework. I'm going to go ahead and download the web framework, put it in your application for you, and then when you press go, it works. Pretty nice, right? Pretty nice. So, creates everything automatically. You know, underneath the covers, it does some conditional Spring Bean stuff. All right, I don't feel that bad about stealing that guy's talk, actually. Don't feel that bad at all. All right, so what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to go, everybody right now go to this address up here at the top. I'll zoom in. We're going to search for Spring Boot. Click on Spring Boot, and doing an application with Spring Boot, and I'll show you guys the URL real quick. I mean, in just a second. Let me see, it's simple. Okay, here we go. So here's the project that you want to find on GitHub. Is Spring Projects -Spring Boot. Actually, let's see. Wait a second. I might be wrong. Actually, here it is. I'm sorry, guys. This is the address that we want to go to. This address right here.
Is that on GitHub?
I think.
Redirects to GitHub.
Yeah, it redirects to GitHub. But this is the documentation page. All right, everybody have that address?
Let's try to load this.
Are you guys good?
No.
Not the Spring.io, but not GitHub.
All right, so that gets you to this page, and then you've got this git clone command right here.
think it's like half
It's
the
not
time.
loading up,
Yeah.
it's just real slow,
Oh, it's real slow?
so we're not, can't find that.
What header is it on?
About midway down the page, it loaded up fairly quickly, so the rest of the page hasn't loaded, but
Okay, well, yeah, I'll just keep going, and I'll come back to this part, and we can get stuff in a minute. So I'll just go through this real quick, and we can take a look at what it looks like. So I've got IntelliJ IDEA open here, and I open the project up in IntelliJ. It has this file structure. Now we've got this application, and this is where it starts. Here's where the Spring application starts up. And we can just copy this code right here later on whenever we're doing our app. But the main meat of the code is this piece right here. And so essentially this is just a REST controller. You guys know about REST, right? And it says any request that I get, I'm going to return the string greetings from Spring Boot. And so this is all built into the sample application. And then the only other thing was that I added a application.properties file to the resources directory, which I created. And there I just specified what port I wanted that application to run on. I just specified what port I wanted the server to run on. And I picked 8085 because I already had something running in port 8080. So now I can just go back to application.java and I can click run. And it launches a server all on its own. We don't have to generate a WAR file, it just launches an embedded server all by itself. And if I go to...
Do you have to run this off of like Apache or anything else?
Nope.
It's its own server built?
Yeah, built right in. Yeah, it's its own server built right in. You don't need Apache or Nginx or anything like that. And so if I go to localhost 8085, now I get greetings from Spring Boot. You guys don't need to install any servers, you don't have to do anything like deploy wars. It's just clone that application, add an application.properties file, and hit run on the main project. And now you've got an up and running server. And so that's how you launch your server. This will probably be the most time-consuming part. After that, I'll just show you little bits and pieces of how to customize the server. And then, very last, I'll show you how to make call into the server from your Android application, which is really easy using some new Spring stuff as well. So, any questions? Did you guys see anything?
What language is the server running?
It runs in Java and Groovy. And one nice thing is you can actually write it in Groovy, and using Spring Boot, it will just automatically detect it's like, hey, you're writing in Groovy? That's all cool, man. I'll just compile it on Groovy.
What is Groovy?
Groovy, yes, what is Groovy? I would describe Groovy as Java on drugs. You know, if you imagine Java, like this guy dressed up in a business suit, Groovy is like Bob Marley. He's got dreads. He doesn't care if you put semicolons at the end of your lines. He's got a really, really short syntax. It's just like, you can write something in Groovy in 5 lines that would take you in like 30 in Java.
So does it run on a Java?
And yeah, it runs on the Java virtual machine. So whenever you compile your files, it'll be .groovy files as source, but when you compile them, they go into .class files, just like Java. Yep. All right. So guys, we'll get started. We'll go until 11:17. So even if you don't have your emulator up and running, let's try and get this server going. At least get it started. That way, it's got time to download a few dependencies in the background. So let's go to 11:30, 11:35.